Hello everyone, and welcome back. I recently finished Radiant Dawn, which means I have finally finished every Fire Emblem game, and the purpose of this video is to rank them in order of how I feel about them. I'm not going to go into extremely full details on every game, because then this video would be like 10 hours long, but just a basic summary of how I feel about certain games. First, we're just going to get the dated tier out of the way. These two games right here, they're NES RPGs. What more can you say? You play NES RPG, you know, like Mother 1, Final Fantasy, they're slow as heck, and that applies to the Fire Emblem games as well, believe it or not. So, yeah, and the real kicker is that both of these games have remakes. In the case of this one, several remakes. So unless you really just want to experience where the series began, I wouldn't really recommend these ones. Now on to the actual list. Starting off on a positive note, we have Binding Blade. If you want to know how much I have Binding Blade, I made a full 9-minute video on why I like it. So I won't go into too much detail here, but to get it out of the way, Roy is my favorite lord in the series. Love his design, love his personality, love everything. A charming cast all around, really diverse designs. You have Sue, you have Gonzalez, you have Boris, and there are like 50 of these guys, and I really don't dislike a single one. Except, you know, Kath, but mostly because she's just annoying to recruit, but I can't really say I dislike a single member of the Binding Blade cast. And what got me into Fire Emblem in the first place is permadeath when I got into Awakening. And I'd say Binding Blade and the next one I'm going to talk about soon really support permadeath as a mechanic. Like, this game has like 54 characters. Unfortunately, one of the downsides is if you lose certain characters, you don't get the good ending. But 2 of the 3 chapters aren't really that large of importance, so I don't really feel too bad if I miss it. And, you know, the maps only have seizing as an objective, but I feel like it goes beyond seizing, because like Chapter 8, right? You're also running away from the reinforcements and trying to get to the throne as quick as possible, so it's kind of like an escape map. And in the desert map, you know, Chapter 14, you're trying to get all the treasure you can on the Silver Card and the Warp Staff in under 25 turns so you can get the good ending. So even though all the maps are seized maps, they also somehow fit multiple objectives in there. And the challenge on hard mode is extremely fair, I feel. Like, you go into something like Conquest, and it's like, oh, hard mode, ninjas that do damage to you and then take 40% damage because of skills even if they miss. Now, Binding Blade is just a fair challenge. The enemies are tough, the maps are tough, but you usually have the tools you need to succeed. And like, even if your best units die, like I did in Iron Man where like Milady and Richter died, and my Alan and Lance kind of sucked, but I still came out on top of that. So I think it's a game that supports the fundamental idea that got me into Fire Emblem, me thinking that permadeath was a neat mechanic. And really, it's just an overall great package. And, you know, it also introduced supports, and all the supports are really good. You know, you wreck and all that stuff. Most of Roy's stuff is pretty good. There are some duds, but like, it's 54 characters, and each of them have like 5 supports. What do you want? And then in excellent games, these are games that are almost up here, but I think have some flaws that hold them back. But to start out with Shadow Dragon, this is by far the best game to Iron Man in the series. You know, really supports permadeath well. There are like a bunch of characters, and, you know, even if you somehow lose them all, you get substitutes. So if you just want to go, not reset, have a quick, you know, 12-hour adventure, 10-hour adventure, assuming you're not warp skipping, you know, it's really fun. It's really fun. And it also introduced reclassing, so it's like infinitely replayable, right? You play it on hard 5, you're like, oh, I want a real challenge this time. Oh, I know. I'm going to use Dark Mage Massalon. That just makes it so replayable, in my opinion. Like, I'm doing one right now where I have Massalon kill Garnet. It's really great. It also introduced a mechanic I really like if you're not doing permadeath save points, where you can just save in the middle of the chapter, and it's so good. And it would be so good for games that have really big maps. You know, like, in 3 Houses, for example, I would really rather have a mid-chapter save than a turn wheel, because in some chapters, like Blue Lion's Endgame Maddening, you can just easily run out of turn saves, and then you have to do that map whole over again, so I would much rather have map saves. And even on the hardest difficulty, where like all the enemies W and one around your guys, pretty much everyone is viable due to forging, right? Like, oh, you just forge the Rider's Bane, you get in Chapter 4, and suddenly Violent, if you toss a couple javelins, he's viable because then he can one-round guys. That's not to say, you know, there's still obviously better units, like, you know, Harden is infinitely better than the wolf pack he comes with. But you can get really anyone up to minimal effort, and it's still hard. And if you really want to take the easy way out, you can just train Wolf and Sedgar. So it's a really well-balanced difficulty, hard 5. except the first 3 chapters are kind of bad and can be kind of reliant on luck, but after that in the mid-game it just opens up to so many possibilities. I like it a lot. Also, the UI is excellent. All the blips and the bloops they make when you hit the buttons on the menus, ooh, I don't know how they did it. You know, it takes advantage of the touch screen so you don't have to do stats. Really, the only thing I kind of don't like a lot about it, because, you know, player freedom and all that, is that the story is kind of basic. You know, Marth's not that interesting compared to Roy or the game that's up next. Marth's just your basic hero, and, you know, the first 3 chapters have kind of unfair bosses. But yeah, overall, gameplay-wise, mwah, chef's kiss. Then we have Fire Emblem Thracia 776. Now, I'm just going to say this right off the bat. Leaf is the best written lore in the series. Now, for me, the story is usually the sprinkle on top, right? Like, you know, I'm not going to say Binding Blade and Shadow Dragon are the best stories in the series, but I just really like playing them. But this game, I am infinitely enthralled with Leaf's struggle, and Leaf's struggle actually ties in with the gameplay, because Leaf sucks, and you also suck, because you need to capture enemies for weapons, you need to get their weapons, and, like, it's so good. The gameplay story integration with Leaf's struggle is so good there. But, you know, you're not completely screwed when it comes to weapons, because another thing I like about Thracia is the immense amount of resources it gets you at the beginning. You get the Brave Axe, you get Hammer, Brave Lance, you get the Flame Sword, you get so many things in just, like, the first 5 chapters. You get, like, the Brave Swords and the Prison Advancer. You get so many things, and it's up to you to decide how to use them, because you have the entire game to figure out how to use these resources. So you can use them early, or you can save them for later. It's a real... The amount of resources it gives you early game really allows for a lot of player freedom, which is, you know, what I like in these games. And you also have fun stuff like the growth scrolls. The growth scrolls, let me tell you, you can train up a unit that only has like 2 base stats, like Kane the Quiet Revolutionary, and give them all 20s. It's really fun stuff. And it's not even broken, too, because Thracia, even if you have a capped unit, is still pretty hard, because it has all the ballista and all that crap. Now, yeah, and I also think stamina is a great system, because, you know, in Binding Blade or Shadow Dragon, right, you raise like 11 units, and those are just the units you use. But Thracia, it's like, hey, use everybody. You get Ralph. In any other Fire Emblem game, he'd be like, oh, I already have 2 promoted heroes. Ralph, you get benched. But no, you're 2 promoted heroes out of stamina, and I gotta use Ralph. So it really makes you think about who you deploy when you deploy. In terms of strategy, probably one of the better ones in the series. Now, my gripes with it are some of the maps go a bit too far. Like Reinhardt map, you have like 20 million authority stars on that map. All the enemies are super dodged because of Reinhardt and Sailor. A ballista spam to the nth degree, and like the map where you promote Renoan or whatever that pink hair priest name is. Just again, 50 million ballistas, sleep stave, wyverns with miracle. Like some of the maps go too far, but you can just say, oh, warp skip. But in terms of discussing the rest of the games and these games, I'm gonna leave out warp skipping as a factor. Oh, I forgot to mention a flaw with Binding Blade. The perfect ending requirements can be vague, like you kind of need to look at the guide for the Douglas stuff, and the gun chapters are tedious. Okay, kind of forgot to bring that up beforehand. But Thracia, and like some of the chapters just go too far, like warp skip. Oh, just warp skip them. But if it's your favorite game and you love a lot, and you're telling me to warp skip it, you're essentially telling me not to play the game. So, like, I'm not gonna hold, oh, just warp skip it as a map defense. Some of these maps are simply too tedious if you're simply just trying to play the game. But other than that, you have some real great stuff, like the City Defend map, that one's really good. And, yeah, and then the Manster arc, where you just have Leaf and Lithis for a while there, and, like, the Magi, that can get pretty tedious, because it kinda isn't what I like about Thracia. Like, Thracia, I like choosing who to deploy. I like doing my resources, right? I like this and that. But a Manster arc just kind of removes that aspect. It's just a bunch of escape maps that can get really boring after a while. So I can't say I'm a huge fan of that. But other than that, I'd say it's really solid. Alright, now here are good games, right? These are the games that I think, chef's kiss. Have a little tiny flaws that irritate me, but doesn't detract from my overall enjoyment for the game. These good games here are... they can get a bit fishy sometimes, but I'd still really say I like them a lot. First up, New Mystery. Now, what do I like about New Mystery? Somehow manages to be super complex compared to Shadow Dragon, despite pretty much having the same systems. Because you have reclassing, males can now reclass to any class, and females have more classes too. And just the way the maps are designed, just to make you try so hard to get there as quickly as possible, like the Fire Dragon map. It's a really irritating map, because they spawn behind you, but it really makes you think how to fully capitalize off of everything you have and get more into the throne as quickly as possible. compared to Shadow Dragon, where, like, yeah, there are reinforcements, but you can probably just kick their ass if you really want to. And this, it's like, nuh-uh, they come every 2 turns, and they have 12 move, get Marth's ass to the throne, you know? And it actually fleshes out the Arcanea cast for the first time. Each character has at least 1 support, compared to Shadow Dragon, where they had, like, 0. And, yeah, most of them are with Chris, but even then I don't mind. Like, even though, like, Chris, some say is a bad character, even though I don't mind her too much. It's like, oh, you get to see Bantu being silly with pickles. That's a nice little characterization for him. If you don't like Chris, just ignore the Chris Garden support. And just acknowledge the character you like part of the support. And, you know, like I said, extreme freedom with reclassing compared to Shadow Dragon. Victories are immensely satisfying once you finally beat that map that you've been reloading 30 times, because New Mystery is in fact a hard video game. You feel so good. So good. But then, like, then Lunatic and Lunatic Reverse just go too far, in my opinion. Like, same problem I had with Thracia, right? Where it's like, 50 trillion million ballistas. New Mystery actually changes the game in ways that make it more annoying. Like, in the George map, right? In the George map, like Chapter 4, you can deploy Julian, immediately recruit Rickard, and as long as you stayed out of George's safe space, you were good to go. But in Lunatic, Rickard is just 1 space up, so Julian can't recruit him anymore, which is annoying. And George will now attack you if you enter his attack range at all, which makes it annoying to get hammered. And, like, there are other dumb changes, like lose the silver card. So many units become unviable because of just the absolute hike in stats. It's just, like, Shadow Dragon Hard 5, I'd say, is a good, is pretty fair. You can use any unit you're on with. It's like with New Mystery, it's like, geez. And, like, the Cyrus map, it's like, oh, you recruit Cyrus with Augment, then Augment just dies instantly. It's like, ooh, yikes. So yeah, I prefer to just play it on Maniac, but I do want to take a Lunatic Plus one day just to see if I can do it. Yeah, I think the difficulty goes a bit too far, but again, this is just my opinion. So, you know, if you love obscene difficulty, then, you know, this could be this game for you, but this is just my opinion, you know, so that's just how it is. Yeah, and then there's Chris. I honestly didn't mind them too much, because I don't think they say they ruined the story of Book 2, but Book 2 is just the same story as Book 1 anyway, right? Like, Garneth takes your sister, he has Falcon, he tries to revive Shadow Dragon, go get your sister, kill Garneth. The only difference is that Hard is like a secondary antagonist in it, and that's really it. Like, you even play on the same maps most of the time. So, yeah, it's not exactly... Chris doesn't ruin the story by any extent, because Book 2 already had Book 1's story, pretty much. And, oh yeah, really big negative that kind of stops it from being up here. You have to replay the tutorial every time. Like, if you want to go through Lunatic, oh, I beat the game on Lunatic, now I want to play it. I beat the game on Maniac, I want to play it on Lunatic and Lunatic Plus. Oh, too bad you have to do the whole 7th platoon shit again. Like, there should just be an option to just, like, auto-level your units so they're ready for Chapter 1. Because I just hate replaying that shit. The maps are so bad in the tutorial. Alright. Next up, we have Fire Emblem Path of Radiance. Now, excellent character writing all around. With Thracia, right, Leaf was the best written lord in the series, right? But with this, it's like everyone is the best written character in the series. You have bangers like Jill, Leaf, oh my god, Chef's Kiss on the writing there, excellent world building. And it turns, but like I said in Thracia, the story is just the sprinkles on top of me, you know, for good gameplay. So, like, if... Oh, wait, this is Radiant Dawn. No. Path of Radiance. Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, yeah. So, yeah, so if Path of Radiance had a bit faster and a bit harder gameplay, it'd be up here, but it doesn't, so... Yeah. It also introduces bonus EXP, which is a system I like a lot, and I mean a lot. You know, the only thing is, it can be a bit broken, because you could use it to train up bad units, but you could also use it to just make your good units better, so it's a bit imbalanced. And I'll go into a way where I would make it a bit more balanced when I discuss Three Houses up next. And then, on top, Ashnard is my favorite villain in the series, just the way he does everything. Like, he's just so evil, and the faces he makes are so funny, like, ooh, hee hee hee. Then in Radiant Dawn, it's revealed he took his own son hostage. Like, Ashnard is such a funny guy. And the maps are actually pretty varied. You have your defend maps, you have your escape maps, you have your siege maps. Pretty fun. The only thing is that route maps in this can take a pretty long time, because the game itself is pretty slow, like tediously slow at points, so you never really want to reset. So luckily the game has a lot of characters, and it's pretty easy, so you don't really need to reset. Like, you know, all of these games so far have done permadeath pretty well, you know, like 54 characters, 60 characters, 80 characters, Leaf, Beyond the Manster arc, it does it pretty well. So you don't really have to reset if a unit dies, which is pretty nice, and the game's pretty, you know, as I said, easy as well. And you have the cool CG cutscenes, you have the Black Knight, you know. The Black Knight, good villain right there. Kills your father, but, like, so does you know, it's pretty unique killing, because usually they just, you know, die, like Jafar kills him, kills Albert, that's pretty lame. The Black Knight, you relate to Ike's Vendetta, and it's like, ooh. And it has automatic promotion, where if a unit gets to level 20, they like automatically promote, which I think is a super, super good system, which I think should be in other games. In case, like, you're in a long stretch without Master Seals, but you really need to promote a unit, that'd be such a good system for other games to have. But yeah, the downsides are, you know, as I said, it's slow at times. Maps can be a bit tedious after a while. It can be a bit too easy, you know. They really do the enemy quantity over quality thing where it can just give, you know, Jill bonus EXP. It's like, you know, you watch Jill kill some enemies, and the story is held back a bit by sequel baiting. Like, they set up that medallion stuff, and it's only paid off in Radiant Dawn. So yeah, overall, pretty good. I liked it a lot, but it just has a bit more flaws than the rest of the games, you know, which is a trend you'll see in the coming times. Then we'll have Fire Emblem 3 Houses. Now, 3 Houses, I think it did the 3 story perspective things very well. Like, you have Edelgard's perspective, Dimitri's spot, I like them all. I only haven't played Silver Snow for a negative reason I'll be going into here. And training up an army of scrubs is very fun. You know, you can pick all the classes you want. You know, all the classes you want. You can have War Master Big Nats, that's what I like to see. You know, you have lots of player freedom, and there are many ways to beat maps because of gambits like Stride, and there are many, you know, movement options and combat arts. You can learn a lot of varied ways to make maps, which can make playthroughs very fun. Lovely cast characters. You gotta love Lysithea. You gotta love Sylvain. You gotta love the well-developed lords like Dimitri. Now we get to the negatives, which there are quite a few, even though I do like 3 Houses quite a bit. First half of the game is a total, and I mean total, chore on repeat playthroughs. You do the same maps on all 3 routes. And for a game where the objective is multiple routes, you should have definitely had different maps there. The loading times are a bit much, like you just load into the monastery and it takes like 5 years, you load into the map and it takes 5 years. When you're just trying to play the game, it gets a bit old. The monastery is boring on repeat playthroughs because you just do the same quests over and over again on all 3 routes, which is, again, bad. Except, like, each lord, I think, has their own unique paralog you can do that you, like, unlock through the monastery. Actually, I don't even think you unlock it through the monastery. So, yeah. But the thing is, you need to go to the monastery to get the stat boosts. So, yeah, yikes, you know, you gotta get the speed carrots. So even if you don't like the boring part, you skipping it is terrible because you can't get motivation up either. And this is a maddening specific complaint. The later maps can be a bit too much. Like, in Blue Lion's maddening, you have ambush spawns that you literally cannot stop, are infinite, and they have siege tomes. So it's like, gee, thanks game. And while reclassing is fun, and is a positive I brought up, you really, in modes like maddening, you really are just encouraged to go like, you know, Draco Knights that use bows, and that's pretty much it. You know, a mage to use warp, all that, a dancer. So even though, like, it really should have had a class cap, like, you know, in Shadow Dragon, in the early game, you can only have 2 Dracos, you know, until you get Paula Minerva and all that. And this, they really should have had a cap, because making them all Draco Knights is too much. It makes it. And the thing is, that's literally the best strat to do. So if you want to be optimal, like, you just kind of have to, compared to Shadow Dragon and New Mystery, we're kind of limited on who you make Draco Knights. And it completely tosses out the idea of permadeath, because you spend so much investing into each unit, and you can't recruit after the time skip. So it's like, if a unit dies, you're just really, you really want to use the turn wheel, which I think is dumb. Really just takes out the idea of permadeath altogether. And here's how I would fix that, actually. Just so have it so it has Path of Radiance bonus EXP. I'm tripping over my words here for some reason, but have a level cap to it. So you know how in 3 Houses, you know, it's like recommended level 20. Don't have the bonus EXP be able to go over that. So say if you recruited Annette in part 1, and then like Mercedes died, and you haven't used Annette at all, oh, you can just bonus EXP her up, but you can't exceed the level cap, so you can't break your already good units. And that's how it fixed the permadeath problem. Just make it so, oh, you can recruit a bunch of units in part 1, which you can already do, and you can bonus EXP them up if a unit dies. That's really the solution to that, I think, at least. Yeah, Shadows of Valencia is a game I like a lot. Handles route maps extremely well, because the problem with route maps, right, in something like Radiant Dawn, they just have infinite reinforcements, they take too long, you don't know when they're going to show up next because they just teleport in. In Echoes, it's like, okay, the only objective is route map, which is my least favorite, but it does it well, because usually there aren't too many enemies in the first place, and there aren't too many reinforcements, but the reinforcements come from summoners, and the summoners can summon quite a bit of reinforcements, but you see them. You see them there. It's not like a random fort that they're going to pop out of. You're like, okay, I have to kill the summoner. So even though reinforcements are coming, you still have a constant path to victory, because if you kill them, you kill the reinforcements. Reclassing villagers is very fun on Alms Route. As soon as you start the game, you can just pick 4 units that you like a lot, and boom, they're the classes you want. Now, you could say, oh, Faye is an optimal for healer, yada yada yada, like 3 houses. But I feel like even if you don't make Faye a healer, like on my last run I made her a Pegasus Knight and I didn't really feel handicapped at all, compared to 3 houses Maddening where, like, you really should make everyone Draco Knights. Has a lot of fun, cool systems that are unique to it, like the foraging. Well, these 2 games have it. In this game, it also ties into the dungeon crawling aspect where you gotta go get 2 coins. And speaking of dungeon crawling, right, I don't think grinding ruins it, because your growths kinda suck besides unit like S. Like, you level up Saber and he gains like 1 skill and 1 defense. Yippee. You really only want to get levels for the promotion bonuses, so like, even if you grind a bit in Echoes, the maps are still hard enough because of the inherent, hardness of summoners and fighting dread fighters, that it's like, ooh, geez, even though I have good stats, I still kinda have to try here, yikes. You really can't get, like, god tier unit stats until the post-game anyway. So, yeah, and the post-game itself is very hard, very satisfying. You gotta go fight Grima. Ooh, really test you on that one. And then it has the turn wheel, which I think is a great addition compared to 3 houses. The thing is, you can use it a bit too much. I would have stuck it to like 3 uses at like 3 houses. But unlike 3 houses, this game has, it still kind of supports permadeath. You have the revival fountain, so even if you run out of turn wheel uses on like Duma's Tower, post game you can just go get May back anyway, which is something I had to do. The thing is, only half the game is good. The other half is Celica's route, where you get the swamp maps and the desert maps. And it's so boring compared to Alms route, where it's like, even though Alms routes can be kind of boring, like a lot of them are open fields, you kind of have cool ones like Nui Baba's Abode, where you can like fly up there, warp up there. So, it incentivizes fast speed. Celica's map is like, oh my god, please stop. Please stop. This route really could have used a warp, or like just have Jenny learn warp after like the boat maps like Silk does on Alm's route. Then you could have actually used your infantry units in that route. And for the story, Alm being royal was kind of dumb, had to ruin the message, and Conrad is a dumb addition. But yeah, overall, very mixed bag. Half the game, super good. Other half of the game, yikes, cringe. And now we get to the fault games, where the faults really could kind of hamper my enjoyment of it, like really, really a lot. So first, we have Conquest. Now, Conquest has way better characters than Birthright, and yeah, way better characters than Birthright. You have Benny, you have Charlotte. The Royals are a lot more interesting. You have Xander, oh me, oh my. You have Leo, Devil's Own Luck. Leo. You have Odin Dark. So, actually, I really should have just said Odin Dark. Odin Dark himself is better than the Birthright cast. Probably the best soundtrack in the series. You have such great songs, I listen to the Conquest soundtrack a lot. Great UI. Awakening's UI was kinda iffy at times with the dual screens, but Conquest really perfected it. You can just get really all the information you need at once on the bottom of the screen. Really, really good soundtrack. The thing is, this is where the negatives start to start. These games are kind of gonna start to have more negatives than positives, but don't get me wrong, they're still fun games, to an extent. There are really great maps that really incentivize good play. Like, you have a map where you free the Hoshins in like 25 turns, you gotta play fast. The reinforcements, they're there, but they aren't ambush spawns, so you kinda gotta outrun out of it. And then, then you have the god-awful maps, like the casino map, where it's like, ooh, you have bad maps. You have good maps in Binding Blade, but the lows don't really reach the low. Like, there's Chapter 8, which is kind of tedious, but it doesn't really reach the low of the Kitsune map for me. So Conquest kind of has the highest highs, but the lowest lows. My Castle, on the other hand, is a very fun system that really lets you personalize your own space. Very fun. I love My Castle so much. It's just a chill spot where you can buy weapons, you can buy stuff. It's very fun. I love My Castle. People say it doesn't fit in with the story, but the story is stupid anyway, so I don't really care. I love Charon. His character is very funny. He's just cartoonishly evil. It's like, oh, a ceiling dragon, tell me how to kill my child. Very, very good stuff. You have very good supports with Charlotte and Benny, but then like there's the high and the high-low thing, and then you have the creepy stuff like with Soleil and Ophelia. So like the maps, you have very high highs but very low lows. So it's faulty, you know, in the way that it's a mixed bag, but still fun. And the skill emblem can go way too far. Like 40% ninjas, really, and you can't save before endgame, which is terrible. But yeah, let's move on. So we have Genealogy of the Holy War. A very innovative game for its time, but I don't really feel like it aged very well. Now you somehow have a fun cast of characters that are fleshed out with the dialogue you have. Like Lex has, you know, talks to like 3 characters in the game, 2 if you don't marry them off. But you know, you get so much of them in those 2 texts, in those 2 lines, that it's just so good, so good. Holy weapons are very, very fun to use. You know, you get 4 SETI, you just bam. Very satisfying gameplay there. The big maps are a really good idea and make you feel like you're in a really grand war, but that's really about the positives I can say for this game. Fun cast of characters, good holy weapons, big maps are a good idea, but unfortunately, compared to compared to Sigurd, Seliph is kind of bland. You know, he doesn't go through mistakes or anything that Sigurd does that eventually get him and all of his friends boned. The breeding system is jank. You know, you really can't, you know, like Lex. Lex literally cannot inherit his Brave Axe from anyone. What this game really needed is a reclassic system for the kids exclusively. So, like, if Lex married Larse, Ulster can be a hero who can use swords and axes. That's the solution to that. And, you know, moving all your units across big sections where nothing happens is pretty bad. Not gonna lie, like Chapter 2 in the 2nd generation, you just move them all to the castle with Ishtar after you get the Gabolg back. I mean, the Balmung. That's just really stupid. It could have used something like Path of Radiance had, where it's like the commander can order all the units together in a certain place. So yeah, for those reasons, I think it needs a remake more than any other game. Also, a remake could add a hard mode, since Genealogy is pretty easy. You know, you can literally solo the whole game with Sigurd. So what a remake needs for this game is, you know, better breeding, you know, a better way to move your units around, and maybe flesh out Seliph a bit more. And the story, people say it's good, but like in the 2nd generation, it's like, because they try to portray the loftier churches. Oh, they were in underground shrines their whole life. No wonder they're evil. We need to feel sympathy for them. But then Manfroy and literally every other guy is like cartoonishly evil. The only sympathetic loftier priest is in Thracia 776, not even in Genealogy Holy War. The only sympathetic loftier priest is in Thracia 776. So good going there, Kaga. So yeah, definitely needs a remake more than any other game. Needs a big rewrite. And everything else. And then we have Fire Emblem Awakening. You know, this was the first game to take full use of the dual screens. You know, Shadow Dragon kind of had the touch screen, have you use your units, and then the stat screen on top, which was pretty, don't know about that one. But Awakening, you can finally tap to see stats and stuff, full detailed explanations, automatics, like that a lot. It added casual mode, well, not my thing. I can see how some people would want to enjoy it for the story. And a lot of people say the story is bad, but I think it's a fine story. You know, they're like, ugh, you know, Basilo coming out of nowhere is kind of an asshole. But I was like, when I first saw that when I was in middle school, I was like, damn, Robin, that was an excellent strategy. Nice play. So maybe I'm just biased since it was my first game, but I don't really have too big of a problem with the story, honestly. I mean, yeah, Grimma's generic, but okay. Thracia, generic villain. Shadow, generic villain. Binding Blade, actually a good villain. Another point for New Mystery, generic villain. Path of Radiance, while Ashnard is funny, he's kind of, you know, one of those reawaken the Dark Gods guys. These guys, Slither in the Dark. This guy, I actually liked him quite a bit. This guy, Garon, spooky. This guy, literally the most evil man ever who sacrifices children. So, like, Grimma being generic doesn't really kill Awakening for me like I guess it does for other. And it's a total love letter to the series, too. Like, you can play as so many characters from past games for free through spot passes. Like, you got Roy, you got Jonte, you got Arden. You can play as Arden in Fire Emblem Awakening. Just a huge love letter to the series. They brought back breeding. And the way they brought it back was better than Conquest, because it actually ties into the plot with the time travel and all that. So really, really excellent everything. Besides the gameplay, because the gameplay is really bad. You have big open fields with long rocky enemy maps, and the worst ambush spawns in the series, in my opinion. Like, you're fighting Walhart, trying to get to Walhart, turn 2, like 5 million guys spawn behind you, and then they kill your unit. Tough shit, kid. So, yeah, and for that reason, you really do have to reset quite a bit. which can make it a frustrating, because, you know, theoretically in Conquest, if you're good enough, you don't have to reset at all, period. But in Awakening, because you see all the information in front of you, there are no ambush spawns, you have all the information you need to win at a Conquest map right in front of you. So if you just play well and your strategy is sound, you never have to reset. And that goes for most of these games, except for maybe Echoes, but that is the turn wheel, so that's why, you know, if you play well enough, you never have to reset, compared to Awakening, where, like, oh no, my unit just died, time to reset. I guess you don't have to, since you could, if your healer dies, you can just prepare to spot pass shooter, but I don't really feel their ambush spawns. And grinding makes the game too easy, like, oh, you get Donald, you go to a grinding map, you give Donald a billion trillion stats. Sure, you don't have to grind, but the option is there, and I don't like it very much. Alright. And then we have Fire Emblem. This is pretty much just worse FE6 for me. You have a less fun cast, you know, Bartray's still there. There's still a bunch of fun guys like Bartray and Ninian. There is a good map variety compared to the previous game, Binding Blade. You know, have good defend maps. However, in the negatives, like, they're also rough the enemy maps compared to Binding Blade, and then, like, Cog of Destiny, it's like you have to kill a billion trillion enemies that just don't stop spawning in zone-based reinforcements. What a good map. What joy. And even on the hardest mode, for the early game, it's just a Marcus sim, like, you just give Marcus a Javelin, and it doesn't get any harder than that, just more tedious. And, like, some maps have really stupid difficulty spikes, like, oh, saves feel from the Bolting Mage and the Fog of War, have fun. So just a lot of worse maps. Probably the worst maps in the GBA series, but it still has some things I like, you know, a lot of characters, lots of ways to go about doing things, so overall I'd say it's a really mixed bag, you know. These three games kind of get past, but from here on out you get the really faulty part of faulty, and then you have mystery. For me, this is just, again, worse new mystery. Like, you could say, oh, Chris, but Chris literally isn't of a problem, since the story wasn't that good in the first place anyway. You know, you have the growth shards, which can make the game too easy. You could just say, oh, don't use the growth shards, okay, but then I could just use Paula and Sirius, so you get in, like, chapter 3 and 4, who just break the game without the growth shards. So there are just too many ways out in this game. It's really kind of ridiculous how easy it is. And Book 1, again, is just worse Shadow Dragon for the DS. Like, the growth shards are fun, but they already make an easy game painfully easily. Like, it's funny to see Mantis with all 20 stats, but it kind of loses its novelty the first time around for me. And extremely tedious maps like the desert map that don't really have the advantage of being fast, being able to skip enemy phases like New Mystery. So yeah, it's a fun game. Some people like to compare it between these two, but to me it's just, New Mystery is a better package overall. Like, I guess to make it hard, you could do a shardless Iron Man where you never reset, but I think that's really the only way you could try to make this game hard. Like, it does support permadeath because, again, there's a lot of characters, and permadeath is important to me, and, you know, Conquest doesn't really support permadeath, but it's still a strategically sound game, right? You know, like, even if you don't support permadeath, the alternative for me is being extremely strategically sound. Like, Conquest, strategically, very good. You have all the information in front of you. You really got to think about how to win maps. And then there's, you know, and then it's, you know, ranked above Genealogy, where it's like, it doesn't really support permadeath because you just save every turn, so if a unit dies, you'd have to be dumb not to reset. And then, yeah, this game, like, it supports permadeath, like, but it's not really a strategically sound game compared to these two. So yeah, it really just has no points for me. It's still fun. It's still kind of fun to just play through, but it gets tedious for me after a while. And then we have Sacred Stones. I guess it's fun enough, you know, it's a GBA Fire Emblem game, so it's bound to be some fun because of just how GBA Fire Emblem is. But this game doesn't support permadeath since there's only 23 characters, so if Naomi dies, oh, good job, no Archer. If Colm dies, good job, no Thief. I don't know, well, I think it's 23, it's about 23. So, yeah, I really don't know what they were thinking, and then, like, 3 of them are trainees, so, like, really you only have 20 units unless you grind, which is dumb. And even then, it's too easy. Like, even on the hardest difficulty, you can just clear the first 75% of the game with Seth. Actually, I'm pretty sure you can just do a hard mode Seth solo easily. So there's no permadeath, and it's not really a strategically sound game easy. But like I said, it's still fun to play to some extent. Like, you know, just try and clear it quickly and stuff. And you can do draft races on normal mode, so that's fun. Then we have Fire Emblem Radiant Dawn. So I have an idea. What if we took everything fun about this game and then made it not exist? Fun written supports for every character? Gone. Let's see. Permadeath, it supports permadeath? Gone. If Leonardo dies in the Dawn Brigade, you never get another Archer. Gone. Okay. Fun map objectives and variety. Oops, do you like kill boss? Do you like rout the enemy? Part 4 starts with 4 route the enemy maps in a row after 2 kill 40 and 80 enemy maps in Part 3 ended, and the reinforcements are terrible. Oh, you just cleared out Oliver's mansion except for 1 enemy. Too bad. 50 million enemies just spawned where you spawn. Go kill them. Oh wait, now 50 million enemies just spawned where you just came from. Oops, too bad. Haha, hee hee, hoo, haha, hee hee. Oh, do you like slow gameplay? Do you like, okay, so you like how Path of Radiance had a kind of complete story except stuff that was really open to the sequel? How about we hide stuff like Soren being Ashnard's son, Peleus being a fake prince, Sol being able to recruit Sephiroth? How about we save that for the second playthrough so you have to play this game twice? Ooh, that's bad. That's not good. That's bad. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Yeah, the part structure doesn't really work out in terms of Fire Emblem. I didn't really even interact with permadeath in this game at all, really, because I didn't want to replay the slow maps, the painfully slow maps again, so I just battle saved every turn since you can do that. Apparently hard mode removes enemy ranges and weapon triangle, which is kind of suspect. Yeah, so many things are wrong with this game. But I'm putting it above the... Actually, I need to make a tier for below this. Oops. The only thing that kind of keeps it up is it does still have Ike. You know, it still has those tightly written characters. You do have base conversations, but that just doesn't cut it for me. Since, like, Aaron only has 2 base conversations, and he was my favorite character in that game, but he only talks, like, twice, compared to if he was in Path of Radiance, he would have, like, he would have had, like, a bunch of supports and people to talk to. So the only thing that really holds it up for me is it is a conclusion to Ike's story. Like, he does fight with the Black Knight, and that gets concluded. And the blood contract shit is stupid. Like, the thing about Path of Radiance, it's an extremely character-driven story. You know, Black Knight kills Ike's father, Ike wants to get revenge, Valencia wants to retake her kingdom. Compared to something where it's like Binding Blade, where the story isn't really about Roy, it's about getting the 7 weapons and freeing Idon and all that. So, you know, there are 2 types of stories, object stories and character stories. Both are good, but character stories are usually better. Halfway through of this, it stops being a character-driven story and starts being an object-based story, because instead of coming up with any convincible reason for Ike and Makai to fight, oh, I don't know, maybe Makai still has a grudge against Ike for what he did to Jane. I don't know, maybe the Senate is blackmailing Peleus for being a fake prince. Oh no, that'd be bad. Oh no, now we actually have a reason to fight. Oh, instead, Peleus signed a piece of paper. Whoops, haha. Fuck Radiant Dawn. The only reason it's up here and not down here because I do like Ike killing God. That's pretty cool. And Tabarn being a lord for some of it, that was pretty radical. Ooh, Tabarn's pretty cool. Ooh. But yeah, just completely, oh my god, why would you ruin everything Path of Radiance did? Why would you do this? And then, you know, worse games. I don't know what to say about Revelations and Birthright that hasn't been said. Snow map, terrible unit balance. Could have benefited from EXP. Lots of games in the series could benefit from bonus EXP. Shame they kept it in Tellius. And then Birthright, it's just Worst Awakening. Even on the hardest difficulty, just watch Ryama go burr as the enemies have 23% accuracy against him. Yeah. So that is my ranking of the Fire Emblem video games. So yeah, I really do like all these games to some extent. I went to Amon Radiant Dawn there quite a bit, but I still like it to some extent because of the it still has good stuff. It's still, all of these games have some good stuff in them. It's just that some of them are really, really weighed down by their faults. Like Radiant Dawn, if the ideas of the multiple parts and the story were executed well, it would easily be up here. If Genealogy of the Holy War got remade and added all the things I mentioned, it would easily be up here. But unfortunately, these games that are potential masterpieces are held back by their flaws. But I don't really hate any of these games. Like I said, fuck Radiant Dawn, but it was just really frustrating to play, but I still do like aspects of it. So hopefully one day, every game in the series gets a remake or something to get the treatment it really deserves, and maybe one day they'll all be up here. But until then, remember to subscribe if you like what you see, and bye-bye.